the time of this story, I was 24 years old. I was about a year out of a very abusive relationship and had just recently started dating the man that I would eventually end up marrying. Let's call my then boyfriend, now husband, Alex. We'll call my abusive ex Anthony, and the stalker Rob. For some context, I left Anthony when I caught him sleeping with a girl I consider to be my best friend. We can call her Leia. After I left, I was in a bad way. I moped around for about 3 months. I have a long history of mental illness, and I had a pretty bad addiction to alcohol at the time. Plus, I had a very low opinion of myself, and catching my boyfriend of over 4 years sleeping with my friend really didn't help. These things together created a perfect storm, so to speak. I lost everything when I walked away from Anthony. I worked so hard. He didn't, but in the end, he got it all. The house, the car. I didn't even get to take my pets with me. I thought I was ruined. He told me horrible things like that no one would ever love me, that I was just a bitch, and a whole lot of other very hateful things that I can't really be bothered to remember anymore. I had no further interest in love, but after a while I brushed myself off, and the following summer, about 7 months later, I left Anthony and I started a very brief relationship with a guy named Rob. He was 20 and I was just a month from being 24. It was fun, but neither of us went into this thinking it was anything more than a fling. Well, that's what I had thought anyway. He had a crazy pregnant girlfriend he desperately wanted to leave, and I just wanted someone whose company I could really enjoy. I want to make this clear right now. Nothing happened while he was with his girlfriend. I don't condone cheating. It's scummy. Anyway, he eventually left his girlfriend and he and I began our very first short-lived summer romance. The troubles began literally 1 hour later. His now ex-girlfriend messaged me and began thanking me for being his screwing around buddy, telling me she was grateful, but that he would never actually be mine. He was hers. Well, I already knew that. This little fling had a 2-week expiration date from the start, as I had a vacation planned for early June, which I had been planning for a couple of months. I was going to the Midwest to visit a friend who had been my rock throughout the last few years, and we were both very excited about it. Well, Rob apparently thought that I would just cancel my trip. No, I had planned this trip in great detail for a while. It was all paid before he and I even began spending time together. He was insanely insecure. I mean, for God's sake. He got jealous and suspicious of my younger brother. He isn't my biological brother, by the way, but we grew up as siblings. I don't see him any different from my biological brother. Everyone who knows me is aware of this. The day before I left for my trip, I ended the relationship as planned. He was all too happy to run back to his crazy ex, and I was all too happy to let him go. I thought that was that. I really did. I know I wasn't a fantastic person in this story. I did technically steal the girl's boyfriend for 2 weeks, but she also told me that she didn't mind. But as it turned out, Rob had actually been obsessed with me. An obsession that ran all the way back to before I even left Anthony. Rob had actually dated Leia, the girl Anthony had cheated on me with. He liked her well enough, but he somehow became fixated on me while with her, staying with her to get close to me. I didn't like him at the time, but I softened up when I asked around about him to some mutual friends, and they said he was a good guy. When Anthony and I broke up, he dumped Leia, befriended me, and somehow became the person I confided in the most. After a month of this closeness, I decided to vanish, not just from him, but from everyone. I deleted all social media, stopped taking calls or answering texts. I vanished. I only spoke with 4 people for almost 4 months after that, from early January until early May. I took that time to get help for my mental state and to get sober. When I got my head back on right, I had made new socials to avoid the mess that I left behind, and I reconnected with a small number of people I found to be positive influences in my life, as well as loyal, kind, and compassionate friends. Eventually, Rob came across my People You May Know section on Facebook. I added him. This was mid-May. After about a week, we hung out. A week later is when our relationship started. 2 weeks later, it ended, and I left for my trip. Now we're all caught up. Well, from the moment I left for the airport, he was texting me, telling me he thought I would cancel my trip and stay with him, telling me he loved me, he wanted to be with me, blah, blah, blah. He would call every night, blow up my phone all day. I couldn't tell you why I didn't block him. I guess I just figured he would get over it. But as my vacation drew to a close, I realized he was growing a bit unhinged. I told him that I decided not to return to our state. I wanted to stay where I was, and then I blocked him. I forgot to mention this earlier, but the day before I ended our relationship, we went to see an old friend of his, and I found out he was in a rather well-known gang. I had no idea before this event, and it did make me a bit cautious about him going into the breakup, but I really thought we had an understanding. Well, he bought it. I came back with no issue. Now it's July and I got a new phone. Well, that erased my blog numbers and he was still calling and texting. I had a friend living with me. We can call her Ella, and she responded to his text for me, basically telling him off. I didn't really care one way or another. He told her he was sorry and he just wanted to be my friend. He understood. So I, a very kind-hearted and forgiving fool, agreed to be his friend. My mistake. He took this as there being some kind of hope for reconciliation. He kept trying to get me to meet up with him for casual sex behind his then fiance's back. I declined, over and over. Well, I eventually told him off and blocked him again. Well, at this point it's early October, and I reconnected with Alex via Facebook. We talked for a while and we realized we still liked one another very much. We liked each other in our school years, but only really remained friends. And in late October, we started dating. Everything seemed great, but somehow Rob was still keeping tabs on me. In early December, he asked one of my close friends about Alex by name, asking if they liked him, if I liked him, if I seemed like I would leave him. My friend understandably thought it was weird and told me about it immediately. I messaged his now wife and I asked her what the hell her husband's deal was. Why wouldn't he just leave me alone? She was no help, so I blocked her and unblocked him on Instagram and I told him to leave me alone. Then my life was none of his business. I was happy and my life was better off without him in it. I told him I couldn't get why he couldn't get over his creepy obsession with me, but that he needed to figure it out. He then accused me of being obsessed with him since I blocked his wife and messaged him. I could not even begin to follow this. He was still typing, but I was done already. I told him I couldn't deal with his crap, and I reblocked him. That same day, the calls started. Hundreds of calls every evening. They would start at around 8 p.m. and last until the early hours of the morning, which was about 2 to 4 a.m. They would normally start with a random phone number. I would block them one after another after another. They were text app numbers. I block one and they make another, over and over again. Then they would be restricted numbers, so I couldn't block them. If I answered the call, the caller would just breathe very heavily into the phone. It didn't matter what I said. They persisted. At some point, Alex had me forward him the calls, and he and his friend, who was a cop in his town, answered one of his calls. He told him his name, told him he was a cop, and even gave his badge number. It didn't help. I had no proof, but I knew it was Rob. Around the same time, a strange car started driving by my house every night. I was a smoker at the time, but I didn't smoke inside. I smoked on the front porch. I watched the cars as I smoked, so I noticed it quickly when it passed by really slowly, super obvious, 4 times in the course of just one cigarette. I have a traumatic past. So after a couple of days of this, I called my phone carrier. The lady was useless. She told me some bullcrap about how I couldn't change my number for some reason or another. She just didn't want to help. So for another month, this kept on. I would literally get 80 plus calls per night. Whether I answered, didn't answer, blocked a number, or didn't block it, none of it made a difference. I was scared. I started smoking inside by an open window in my bedroom with the light out, so no one could see me since my windows faced the road. I stopped leaving the house. I ended up moving in with Alex, who lived about an hour away from where I was living, and he helped finally get my number changed. This was probably around mid-January. Everything was quiet for about 7 months. In August, Alex and I were on vacation in Texas. We went down to the beach, went to see my grandma, and then went to visit with another member of my extended family. During this time, Rob's wife made another Instagram account to message me from. She was now begging me to talk to Rob, talking about how he missed me and wanted to talk to me. At this point, it's been over a year since we broke up, almost a year since I started seeing Alex, and 2 years since Rob started his creepy obsession with me. I was so tired of this. I told her I didn't want to talk to him. She continued to ask me to talk to him. She asked for my number to give to him. I said no. She offered me his number so I could call him. My patience was running thin at this point. I told her that I have no issue with her, but they needed to leave me alone, that I didn't want to talk to Rob. I honestly felt sick to my stomach. He had his own wife, the mother of his child, trying to get him back into my life. That's desperation. She asked me again to please talk to him. She told me it's fine with her. Okay with her? What the hell? Before I could reply, she told me she knew where we were and mentioned the exact city we were in. She told me they could drive there and meet with me. My blood ran cold. How the hell did she know that? I blocked her, right then and there. I felt like I was going to throw up. Thankfully, Alex and I were leaving that city the following morning. And after that last exchange of messages, Rob just seemed to finally give up. In hindsight, I think it was probably Rob who was messaging me from the new Instagram with his wife's name and photo. After they got back together, she got very possessive of him, especially in regards to me. While I was on vacation, I answered a few of his calls, and he would tell her he was talking to me, and she would absolutely lose her mind. I don't know what made him decide to leave me alone, but it's been 4 years since, and I sincerely hope to never ever hear from Rob or his wife ever again. I've been a lurker lately, and I realize that I have quite a creepy story as well. This whole thing started back in 2008 during my senior year in high school. I woke up late one night to my phone ringing. I looked at my clock and wondered who would be calling me at 4 in the morning. The caller ID said it was a private number. Thinking that it was some automated call, I didn't answer and just went back to sleep. Whoever it was didn't leave a voicemail, so I didn't think anything of it, until these calls started to come more often. It made me uneasy, but they were so rare I didn't think too much of it. During my freshman year of college, these calls started happening almost every night, and always around 4 a.m. I never answered them just because answering to an unknown number has always creeped me out. And knowing by then that whoever this was, it definitely wasn't an automated call or anything. They started to get adamant, like calling 3 to 4 times repeatedly after not answering. I was starting to get pissed off because I'm a student who has 8 a.m. classes, and whoever this is needs to leave me the hell alone. So I finally answered. The first thing I noticed is loud rap music in the background.
Hello? Who is this?
No response.
Please stop calling me. I think you have the wrong number.
I then hear menacing laughter and incoherent mumbling. Even though I couldn't understand what he was saying, he just sounded threatening. It still gives me chills thinking about the laughter.
Look, whoever you are, you have the wrong number. Stop calling me.
And I hung up. I'm thinking this guy is probably drunk or on something because I couldn't understand a word he said. It was just the way he said them. It really creeped me out. I got a gut feeling that this guy was someone that I never wanted to meet in person, ever. And that's when I began to wonder if I had a stalker on my hands. I really became paranoid about it. The calls continued for months. They were so frequent that I ended up turning my phone off at night so I could sleep. I never thought about calling the police because I didn't even have a number to go by. I was always really aware of my surroundings from that point on though. Being on the 3rd floor of an apartment also helped, but still, it really messed with me. During Christmas break that year, I went home to Memphis, Tennessee. It was nice to take a break from school and just relax, but early one morning, I got a call from the private number again. Except this time it wasn't at 4 a.m., but around 8 or 9. I answer, ready to go off on this guy.
Who the hell is this? You have the wrong number. Leave me alone.
Then I hear a deep male voice respond in a demanding way.
Are you going to meet me?
This was the only coherent thing I've ever heard from this guy. He sounded like your typical thug, which being from Memphis isn't the best situation. So in shock, I respond.
No, I don't know you.
In the most menacing voice I've ever heard, he then said,
I know where you live. Be there soon.
Then the line disconnects. This is the part where I flip the hell out. I'm in full-out panic mode. I rush to my parents' room and wake them up. I'm on the verge of tears and tell them what happened. Obviously, they're really worried, and we're on the same brainwave. I'm wondering how this guy could possibly know me. Should we call the police? What would we even tell them? My dad with his military training is up immediately and grabs his gun from under the bed. He's on full-on alert and he starts keeping an eye out for mysterious cars driving around. I was petrified the whole day, and sleep definitely wasn't going to happen. Sorry to be painfully anticlimactic, but thankfully nothing ever happened that day. I decided if I got another call from him, I would call my phone company to see if they could trace his number and then report him to the police. But the calls just stopped after that. I haven't gotten a call from him since. I've always wondered if it was just someone messing with me, but from the way he said be there soon, it didn't sound like messing around. It sounded menacing and threatening. My gut told me I was in trouble. Nothing came of it though. Everything just stopped. I can't help but wonder if he thought he was calling someone else, someone he knew. He was going to go over to that person's house and something bad was going to go down by the way he sounded. I really hope it wasn't some other girl who just happened to sound like me. If it was, I really hope she's okay. The way the calls just stopped completely makes me think otherwise. I'm a 25-year-old female, and my name is Jenna. This happened to me back in 2015 when I was just a young 16-year-old teenager working my very first job at GameStop. Now, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, which for those who are unaware, it's not really the greatest area to be in. Luckily for me, the specific area where I lived and worked was a decent part of town. It wasn't super bad, but it wasn't that nice either. Just a regular area, I guess, with the occasional car break-ins here and there, and your tweakers you'd have to watch out for. So anyways, I had just gotten this job about a week ago, and before I actually landed it, I was applying pretty much everywhere that a teenager could work. I was really eager to start making my own money so I could get myself my first car, which I've always really wanted. A Honda Civic, as they're super reliable and just cool cars in general. I've always had to rely on my mom, dad, or my sibling to get me to work, and I was wanting to get my own ride to avoid that. Well, anyways, I eventually got hired at GameStop, and I was super excited because this was the place that I wanted to work at the most. I've always loved video games ever since I was a little kid playing my very first Nintendo 64 or PlayStation 1, so I was pretty excited to work somewhere where I'd be selling games and consoles to other gamers. I eventually start my first shift, and it's on a Saturday at noon. It went pretty well. It was kinda neat seeing what it's like on the other side of things, selling games and doing trade-ins. Most of the customers were either young kids or men in their early 20s. All went well, and my shift was just about to end at 8 p.m., which was closing time, when the final customer of the night walked inside the store. I did the typical greeting. Hey, welcome to GameStop. We're closing soon, but if you need help with anything, let me know." It was a young guy who appeared to be around my age. He was kind of just browsing the store looking at different games for different consoles. Kinda off, but not really. I mean, I know several people who have different consoles. I guess it's just that most people who come into the store usually know exactly what they want, and they get it and go within a reasonable amount of time. Not that I'm knocking the guy for browsing, just saying. It's near closing time, and it was a bit of an odd time to come in and browse like that. But I digress. Well, he eventually comes to the counter, gives a small smile, and he asked me if I can look up an older game for him in the system. He says he saw that we had it in stock online, but that he can't find it. I told him sure, no problem. One of the things I was trained on when first getting the job was that the older pre-owned games are sometimes not always on the shelves, so I have to look it up and see if we have it. And if we do, it should tell me on the computer where exactly it's located. I know, kinda weird, but whatever. I do just that, and I see that we do actually have it, but as I'm searching it up, I get a better look at the guy now that he's closer to the counter, and I actually recognize him as someone who goes to my high school. His name is Sean. Not only that, but he's in one of my classes. I don't think I've ever interacted with him at all, and I've never even seen him socialize with anyone else, so I guess he's the quiet loner type. Well, anyways, I located the game he wanted, which was an old Tekken game on PlayStation 1. I won't knock it. I also have some older games I like too. So whatever. We all like what we like. I do the transaction, tell him to enjoy the game and have a nice night. He smiles and walks out, but not before turning back and then saying, "You're too beautiful to be working here." That caught me off guard completely, and that was the most the dude talked through our whole interaction. It gave me the heebie-jeebies for sure. Not because the dude was bad looking or anything, he was actually a regular decent looking dude. There was just something strange about him. I couldn't put my finger on it. Call it a gut feeling. Well, my shift ends after he leaves, and I close up with my manager and call my mom to pick me up. I go home not really thinking much else about the encounter, then go to bed later that night. I wake up the next day and get ready to go in for my next shift on Sunday. Same shift as before, 12 to 8. It was a pretty slow day this time, with only a few customers here and there. There were some interesting characters though. One guy came in with like 50 games for trade-in value, and literally every game was scratched. We had to turn him away. And yeah, he wasn't a happy camper, but we can't accept faulty products. There was also a kid who was like 10 years old who came in and traded in a boatload of games to get enough store credit in to buy a PS4. Now that I could respect. That was really it though, until again, I hear the sound of the door opening, letting me know we have a customer coming in right before close. I kinda just instinctively say, "Hi, welcome to GameStop," before even picking up my head and looking up, before I then see that it's the same loner dude from last night. What the hell? Is this dude really gonna do this again? Is what I was thinking. This time, however, he doesn't do the same thing as before where he's browsing a bunch of different games. He's looking in one specific area while occasionally glancing back at me and doing this weird half smile kind of thing. It was bizarre to say the least. I tell him that we close in 5 minutes, and he just says thanks and leaves. This is when I begin to start thinking that maybe he's actually a weirdo, but at the same time, I was getting tired that night, and I didn't want to overthink anything, so I just tried to forget about it and once again called my mom to pick me up so I could go home. So I'm gonna skip ahead a bit. A few weeks have passed since the first few encounters with the loner guy, and I had started noticing him in class now. I was now paying a lot more attention to him than I was previously before I knew him or encountered him at my job. I'd see him constantly staring at me, whether it was in class, the hallway, the cafeteria, you name it. I'd see him staring at me and always in the same areas that I was in. Now, I am by no means suggesting that I own the place. It's a damn school. Of course we're going to be in the same area sometimes, and that's fine. but it was the way he was staring at me when he'd see me. It was like I was his prey or something. Well, one night I'm working again, and it's about 5 p.m., and the phone at the store rings. I answer and say,
"Hello, GameStop Memphis. How can I help you?"
And I just hear the typical weird creepy breathing like you've seen in scary movies. I think it happening in real life, though, made it a tad more creepy. I waited a few more minutes to see if they'd say anything else, then hang up. I expected the phone to ring again immediately after, but it doesn't. Okay, I guess they took the hint, I say to myself. A few hours pass, and the phone rings again.
"Hello, GameStop Memphis. How can I help you?"
It was the same person, the breathing in the phone again. I then say,
"Alright, well, we're about to close. Hope you've had fun with this because now nobody else will be here to answer your weird, creepy calls."
Then the person speaks.
"But I can call you directly anytime I want, Jenna. Your number is still this number, right?"
He says and then recites my cell number. I'm actually shitting bricks at this point and truly creep the hell out. I just hang up immediately and tell my manager about the strange calls. I had told him earlier about the first one because he always asked me how the calls went and what the customer needed, so I always informed him what was going on. I told him that we got another creepy call and it appears that it's someone who knows me and is playing a weird prank on me and that they have my real number. My manager was actually very supportive. He told me that the next time we get a call, he'll either answer himself or have another coworker answer it, and that for the time being, I can take a break from answering phone calls. And he also promised for a few weeks to only schedule me during the daytime. I was really grateful for that, but I didn't like losing hours. I really wanted to buy myself a car and stop relying on other people to help get me to work, as well as everywhere else. Although I was grateful for not having to answer calls now or work nights, there was still a looming thought at the back of my head. The caller has my number. He can call me anytime he wants. And that really scared the hell out of me. I tried to continue my life as normal. Go to school, go to work, just live my life. Hopefully it's just a prank and it won't go any further. Well, that couldn't have been any further from my reality though, or what would soon become my reality. Well, one night I was at my friend Kelsey's house and we decided we wanted to go out for a bit. So we decided to go to the Sonic drive-in and get some shakes, some burgers, and just chill and eat some food. Well, we're actually eating on the patio area, not sitting in her car. We order our food and while waiting, I get a phone call from a random number.
"Hi, Jenna. Do you remember me? I was trying to give you some space since our last call, and I think it's been enough time. How are you? How's GameStop? What did you order to eat from Sonic? I really love their mozzarella sticks paired with an Oreo milkshake. Yeah, that's my favorite. How about you, beautiful?"
I felt a pit in my stomach. I immediately lost all appetite for the food we just ordered. Tears started streaming down my face, and I told Kelsey after we got our food we needed to get the hell out of here now. She doesn't understand what's going on, but she can tell right away by my reaction and tears that something is wrong. So after the food arrives, we grab it, get in her car, and she starts driving us back to her place. While in the car, I begin to tell Kelsey that I think I have a stalker, that someone's been calling me, being a creep, how it all started at work and now they're calling my cell phone and seem to know where I'm at. As you can imagine, Kelsey was just as freaked out about this as I was, but what freaked us out the most was that he had my number and knew my location. People don't just have that kind of information. So I started thinking, could someone who worked at Sonic been the stalker? No, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, yeah, it's possible, but that would just be so weird. I then thought about social media. I didn't post anything today on Instagram or my Snapchat story, so they couldn't have found my location through me. I asked Kelsey if she posted anything today about us hanging out, and she said that she actually did. She posted on Facebook that we're hanging out today, and she posted on her Snap story as well. Sonic with the bestie. I guess I somehow missed her taking a photo of Sonic while we were there, so yeah, I guess that's how he knew where I was. Kelsey was now freaking out and hyperventilating because whoever this freak was had eyes on her social media too. She was apologizing profusely about posting her location on Snap, but I told her it's not her fault. Friends should be able to do those things without some freaky phone caller weirdo being a creep. I told her until further notice maybe we need to private and possibly even temporarily deactivate our socials until we figure out who this guy was. Kelsey agreed, so we privated our accounts and also refrained from posting where we were. We weren't going to deactivate our accounts just yet. We wanted to see how far this creep would take things. We both just continued to live our lives as we normally did. I continued my job at GameStop as well as school and socializing, and so did Kelsey. A few days go by, and I ask Kelsey if the creepy caller has contacted her as well since the Sonic incident, to which she tells me no, everything has been normal on her end. Okay, that gave me some confirmation that he wasn't actually after Kelsey too. He was after me. He was just using Kelsey's socials to keep tabs on me, which makes sense. Well, a week passes, and it happens. I got another phone call from a random number, which, by the way, for anyone wondering why I didn't trace the calls, well, I did. And, well, the phone calls were coming from a random call app, so it was a dead end. Anyways, he calls again and I answer, but I don't say anything. I just listen. He starts with the same old routine of just breathing into the phone. Then he begins speaking.
Jenna, I know you're there. Come on, don't be like that.
So I then reply back.
I don't know what your damn problem is, but you have major issues, buddy. Calling and stalking a teenage girl is just sickening and insane. You need help.
I say into the line.
Jenna, relax. You should be happy that you have someone who cares so much about you. I'm putting forth so much effort to be a part of your life, to connect with you. You should really appreciate it, Jenna. It would be a damn shame if something happened to that bestie, Kelsey, or that cute little cat you have. What's his name again? Sylvester, right? Like the one from Looney Tunes that's always trying to eat Tweety, right? See, Jenna, I know you. I know so much about your life.
I just couldn't listen to it anymore. I hung up and ran to the bathroom and began vomiting. I was hysterical. This was too much. This was sick. This was wrong. My mom, my dad, and my older brother Dean had apparently overheard me yelling on the phone, as well as my hurling, and they came to see what was wrong. Jenna, honey, are you all right? What's going on? We heard the yelling. My mom says, give me a second, y'all. I'm not feeling so good. I finish my hurling and clean myself up and walk out to see my parents and brother all in my room with worried and concerned faces. What the hell's going on, Jenna? Dean says. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. I say, not wanting to worry them. Nah, screw that, Jenna. We heard you. What the hell's going on? Tell me. Dean says with some slight aggression in his voice. No, it's my problem, y'all. I don't want to drag you into it, I say. Honey, you're scaring me. Please talk to me. My mother begins to have tears well up in her eyes, looking increasingly concerned. I break. I shut down completely and begin bawling my eyes out along with muttering incoherent phrases. He's scary. Calling. He won't stop. My parents wrap their arms around me trying to calm me down, and I eventually do. My eyes and head hurt from all the crying and hurling, but I finally feel okay enough to at least tell them the full story. That ever since I started working at GameStop, I've been getting creepy phone calls from someone, and now they're calling my real number and making vague threats. threatening to hurt my best friend and my Sylvester, who's the light of my life. I've had him since he was a kitten. He's everything to me. My parents' faces shifted from sad to now angry. They asked me why I waited so long to come to them about this, that this isn't something I should have dealt with on my own, to which Dean agrees, along with some other annoying statements, saying how he's gonna find this guy and make him pay when we don't even know this dude's identity. My parents said first thing in the morning they're going to handle this, but for now to get some rest. They also took my phone for the night in case the bastard decided to call again and get me worked up. I was actually okay with them taking my phone. This guy was becoming a nightmare, and I really wanted to forget about him, so I agreed, and I did my best to get some rest. I didn't get a whole lot of rest, but I did feel somewhat better by morning. I wake up and head downstairs to see both my parents and Dean sitting at the table with serious faces. I asked if there were any calls during the night, to which they said yes, but I don't need to worry about it right now. Just go to school and live your life for now. We got this, Jen. Don't worry, Dean says. It made me smile. Dean hasn't called me that since I was a little girl. It made me happy knowing that my big brother cared this much. We honestly haven't had much of a relationship since the both of us getting older, but it made me realize that when shit gets rough, I know he's got my back. And of course, I got his too. So I went to school and everything was normal. Dean actually picked me up from school that day. He begins telling me while on the way home. So look, I have this friend at the University of Ole Miss. Crazy smart dude. He's into all that hacking shit with computers and whatnot. You know, stuff that I don't know anything about. I think he might actually be able to find this dude that's been messing with you. Mom and Dad said they're cool with me going down this route if you are too. But I wanted to ask you first. From my perspective, we need to find this creep or he's not gonna stop. Even if you get a new number, he knows who you are, Jenna. He knows our family. We need to take away his power. And the way we do that is finding out who he is, Dean says with a serious face. I tell him I'm down. Let's find this sicko and put an end to this. He agrees and he calls his friend, giving him the go-ahead to start looking into the numbers and seeing if he can find out who's been causing my life so much hell. Some of you might be wondering, why didn't she just go to the cops? Well, first of all, we did. We tried going to the cops first and they were useless. They said it wasn't worth their time and it sounds like just a prank. And without any real evidence or identity of who's doing this, there wasn't much they could do. We also went to our phone carrier, the wonderful AT&T, and they weren't much help either, saying due to privacy policy yada yada they couldn't tell us who was harassing me. But deep down, I honestly believe they were all just too stupid to figure it out. So anyways, now it's a waiting game. I wait and find out to see if we can find this idiot. In the meantime, I'm still working at GameStop. The timeline of all this might seem a bit confusing, but at this point in the story it's been a few months, and due to all the hell I've been experiencing, even though it had nothing at all to do with GameStop, I never once missed any shifts or took any additional time off, and I ended up getting a raise, which I totally didn't expect after just a few months of working there. But I think my GM really felt sorry for me and just wanted to help me out. So yeah, that was pretty cool. One step closer to that Honda Civic. Hell yeah, I told myself. Well, you've all heard the saying, it's gonna get a lot worse before it gets better, right? Well, it's true. Things were looking up, but it wasn't quite the happy ending just yet. Another phone call happened. I kinda let it ring for a few seconds. It was like a scene right out of a horror movie. I was gazing upon the phone with impending doom, just horrified. It felt like everything was in slow motion. Jenna, you gonna get that? My coworker Marcus snapped me back into reality. Yeah, sorry, I replied before answering the phone.
Hi, GameStop Memphis. How can I help you?
It was him.
Hi, Jenna. It's been a minute. How are you doing? isn't gonna stop me. Nothing will. And one day you will be mine. You will notice me just like I notice you every single day.
Then something clicked in my head.
Hold on, what did you say? Notice me every day? Do you go to my school?
I asked him. Then the call disconnected. He messed up big time, and he knew it. He gave away a key detail, and now I knew that he was someone in my school, maybe even in my class. Then it hit me. The kid from before, the weird loner guy. It had to be him. From the telling me I'm beautiful remark to the calls happening right after, there was no question. This was our guy. I called my brother and immediately told him that I think I found out who the caller is. It's this weird loner kid from school. You're not gonna believe what he actually says back.
Jenna, that doesn't even make any sense.
To which I then respond.
What do you mean it doesn't make any sense? All the puzzle pieces fit. This dude was a customer at GameStop, and then right after is when the call started.
I tell him, now mad because I think he doesn't believe me.
Look, I'll explain on our way home. I don't want to say it over the line.
He says. He came to pick me up from school and we ended up talking about everything in the car. He tells me that his friend found the identity of the person who's been doing the calls, but it isn't the weird loner kid from my school. It's someone else entirely. And now I'm so lost and confused. So my friend did his magic and well, it looks like the person who's been doing all this actually lives in the neighborhood. Not only that, but he doesn't even go to your school. He's some high school dropout that stays home all day. Panic sets in. What the actual hell is going on here? I'm not understanding any of this, but my brother concocts a plan to confront the dude over it. So Dean tells me, I'm gonna confront him about this tomorrow while he's taking out the trash to the street. You're gonna sit in the car and I'm gonna charge him and get answers. I begin to think that this is a really bad idea, but screw it. The dude has been making my life hell. Screw him. So I tell my brother I'm down. Skip to the next morning. Just like my brother planned, we drove up across the street from his house, me sitting low in the passenger seat, and my brother gets out and charges the guy as soon as he's taking out the trash. He grabs him and pins him to the ground, demanding answers, asking why the hell he thinks it's okay to harass young girls. Dude, what the hell are you talking about? I didn't harass anyone, the kid says. As you can imagine, this infuriated me, and I just couldn't help myself. I rushed out of the car and to the guy, telling him to drop the act. We know he's the one. The one of what? What are you guys talking about? Who the hell are you and why am I getting attacked? He asks. You're the one who's been calling my sister and being a sick little freak, harassing her for months, Dean says. Bro, I genuinely have no idea who the hell either of you are, but if you don't let me go, you're gonna have bigger issues, he says. Right at that moment, some big ass dude who's like 6'5" comes out and tackles my bro to the ground and then frees who we think is the creepy caller. What business do you guys have with my little brother? You touch him again and I'll break your neck, the guy says. Yeah, well maybe if you taught your little bro not to be a scumbag harassing young teenage girls, he won't need you to save his ass, my brother says back. The buff tall dude kind of pauses, shocked at what Dean just said, then turns and looks to his own bro asking what the hell's going on. That's the thing, bro. I genuinely have no idea what's going on here. I was taking out the trash and he then attacked me, accusing me of harassing his sister, he says. Look. Obviously, there's been some kind of mix-up here. Let's all calm down and talk about this, the older brother says to us. If y'all are willing to be trusting, we can go in the backyard and see if we can figure this bullshit out, the brother says. Okay, I'm fine with that, I say, and Dean agrees too. We go into their backyard and sit at a table, and we basically explain everything that's transpired over the last few months to the two brothers. And how after we traced the numbers, they all led back to this guy, the younger brother of the two. That makes no damn sense. I would never do some messed up shit like that to anyone, let alone a young woman. Wait, he says, then pausing with a shocked face. I have a friend. He's kinda a weird guy. You know, a few months ago, he hit me up out of the blue asking if he could borrow my laptop. He said he needed it for school stuff. I have tons and I'm a bit of a tech nerd, so I just told him, yeah, sure, whatever, and I let him borrow it. It's been a few months though. It sounds like it would be about the same timeline as when all this weird creepy shit started happening. Okay, who's your friend? What's his name? Dean asks. It's Sean, he says. Sean, that's the kid from my class. The same kid who was coming to GameStop. The same kid who I thought it was just a day ago. Okay, look, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna call your buddy Sean to come over here and bring the laptop, that you need it back, and then we're gonna confront him, Dean says. The guy agrees and he calls Sean. He tells him that he needs his laptop back, but Sean begins arguing. He says that he still needs it, but he manages to convince him to bring it back, and he does. So we created a plan. My brother and I hide while we wait for Sean to show up and come around to the backyard, and then after that we confront him. It went exactly as planned, except we actually got a little help. Sean shows up, comes to the backyard, and gives the laptop to the younger bro, and that's when Dean, the older bro, and I charge Sean and hold him down. You're caught. There's nowhere to run or hide, I say. Sean then gives me a sinister smile. Well, I guess the performance had to come to an end sometime, to which my brother then hits him in the face and then says, You close your eyes. You don't even get to look at her after the sick games you've played. The two brothers also have choice words for him. Because of your little stunt, you almost got my brother seriously hurt. Who the hell does something like that? What are you, a Ted Bundy wannabe? Yeah, man, what the hell? I almost got my ass kicked because of you. Why did you do this? Honestly, man, I don't even want to know. But we're done. Our friendship's over after this. I don't want to hear from you ever again, the little brother says before walking inside his house. I don't know what he's gonna do to you, but whatever it is, you definitely deserve it for what you've put this poor girl through, the big brother then says. You're gonna have to pay for what you've done somehow, kid. So pick one. An arm or a leg. What? You're gonna cut off one of my limbs? Sean starts screaming and crying. No! Shut the hell up! I am gonna break one though. This is your punishment. Jenna, leave. Go home. I'll be right behind you soon, Dean tells me. I do just that. I leave and I start walking home, which is just down the street. And about 10 steps after, I hear Sean screaming in pain. I'm not sure which he chose, but I know that it hurt like hell. It's just insane that it had to come to this. He could have just left me alone, but no. He kept harassing me and made threats on my best friend and cat, and then almost pinned it on someone else. What a psycho. Well, Dean eventually came home and walked inside with the laptop, which had me confused. So the brothers think we should keep this and take it to the police. Apparently, the idiot didn't delete the calling apps that he used to call you, so we have the evidence of all the calls, Dean says. We tell our parents everything that transpired, minus breaking the dude's arm, which I did find out he chose an arm so he could at least still walk. So yeah, but we left that part out. Anyways, we went back to the police, once again rehashing the whole story, and brought the laptop to the station. The cops actually seemed interested this time now that we had some evidence. They saw how Sean had made some calls to me, and it all matched to the calls on my phone. But not only that, he was also calling other girls too. It was sickening. Long story short, Sean's family had to be called and told about everything that happened, which was really just his mom. You could tell that she was utterly ashamed of her son's behavior. We pressed charges for harassment. It also got around in school what Sean did. And well, let's just say it didn't go well for him moving forward, and he became even more of a loner. My story does have a happy ending though. No more creepy calls, and after a year of working at GameStop, I saved enough money to get that Honda Civic that I always wanted. And although the calls and what I went through was a horrific time, I'm really glad that I stuck it out with that job. It taught me what it means to persevere through things, and working hard can get you nice things. But I learned something else too through all of this. Don't ever underestimate an older brother's love and protection for his little sister. Seriously, to my brother Dean who had my back through all of this, thank you, bro. I couldn't have asked for a better brother. Hey everyone, that's about it for today's stories. If you have your own story that you would like to send, you can send it in at southerncannibal.com, or you can email it at southerncannibal.stories@gmail.com. I look forward to telling your story. Have a good night or good day, everyone. And remember to always stay